What's going on, everybody, and I hope you're enjoying your Monday morning so far. This is NYGGFVT85 here, and I'm going to talk about the New York Giants wide receiver position, a position that I talked about last year at around this time, saying that it was the key to putting this team over the top. And it's going to be the same thing this year, but a little bit different cast of characters, free agents, draft picks, and returning guys all mixed together, seeing if they can make an impact going into this 2023 NFL season. And that is the wide receiver position. Now you look at the New York Giants wide receiver position this year compared to where it was last year. Last year, at the beginning of the season, you had guys like Kadarius Toney, Wan'Dale Robinson, Richie James, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, Kenny Golladay. These were the guys that were part of that wide receiver rotation in 2022. Now you look at this team. Golladay is no longer on the team. The Giants cut him. Sterling Shepard is coming off a major injury, as is Wan'Dale Robinson. Both of them coming off ACLs. Collin Johnson is another one, but he's coming off a major injury. Kadarius Toney was traded to the Kansas City Chiefs and ended up winning a Super Bowl later, but he was gone. Richie James, he was a free agent. He's gone now. He was let go by the team. Wasn't re-signed. Darius Slayton is back on the team. And the Giants have also added Jeff Smith. Isaiah Hodgins is back. Parris Campbell. Jamison Crowder. And the team has also drafted Jalin Hyatt. And they've signed Bryce Ford-Wheaton as an undrafted free agent. So this Giants wide receiver core is a lot different compared to where it was in 2022. Giants have added a hell of a lot more speed to this wide receiver core. Darius Slayton, Parris Campbell, and Jalin Hyatt all can run at least a 4.3 on the outside in terms of a 40-yard dash. All of them have sub 4.3 speed. Isaiah Hodgins, tall guy on the outside that can be able to create separation, has a good rapport with Daniel Jones. I.e. the same thing with the Bryce Ford-Wheaton, the undrafted free agent out of West Virginia. 6'4", also 4.3 speed. You have Collin Johnson, bigger wide receiver, physical guy, can be able to, out-physical the defender and get open over the middle of the field. Obviously, we know about Wan'Dale Robinson and Sterling Shepard, shifty slot receivers that can get open and create separation due to their route running and shifty presence over the middle of the field. Same thing with a Jamison Crowder. And then you have a guy like Jeff Smith, who is also a guy that can go down the field and uses deep speed to create separation. And then you have guys on the back end of the roster like Khalil Pimpleton, who's more of a returner, smaller stock wide receiver, as well as David Sills, 6'4", wide receiver, can use his body to go up and pluck the ball out of the air. Same thing with the Makai Polk. So the Giants have a lot of different type of style of wide receivers on this roster. Bigger wide receivers, speed wide receivers, jump ball, physical outside wide receivers. It's going to be an absolute competitive battle between all these wide receivers going into training camp and preseason. And the Giants need some type of X factor with this wide receiver position. They have not had a wide receiver go over 800 yards since 2018. That's when Sterling Shepard and Odell Beckham Jr. both had over 830 yards receiving during the 2018 season. Since then, Giants have not had a wide receiver get to that point. Darius Slayton has come close. At the same time, right now the New York Giants have not had a wide receiver go over 1,000 yards. And that's been a position that the Giants have had guys that have been able to do that for multiple seasons. So hopefully the Giants can get more production out of the wide receiver position going into this 2023 season. That's exactly what we're expecting to see when you bring in the type of talent that Big Blue has brought in over the course of these past couple of seasons. So the Giants right now, it's going to be a massive competition at this wide receiver position. You're talking about at least, like I mentioned the guys, Parris Campbell, Jeff Smith, Jamison Crowder, brought in through free agency. Darius Slayton, Isaiah Hodgins, Sterling Shepard, all brought back in free agency. Wan'Dale Robinson, second round pick coming off injury. Collin Johnson is on the roster. You got Makai, Polk, David Sills, and Khalil Pimpleton. You draft Jalin Hyatt in the third round, and you sign Bryce Ford-Wheaton in undrafted free agency. Giants are at least 10 plus deep at the wide receiver position. A lot of these guys, there's no number one receiver on this current roster right now with the New York Giants. But at the same time, there's a lot of guys on here that could fit into this Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka style of offense. So you're going to get a lot of guys that are going to go out there and they're going to compete to get themselves one of those roster spots on this team and be in the position to get a whole bunch of playing time. And what I believe the Giants are going to do going into this NFL season is they're going to be rotating these wide receivers in and out, depending on who has the hot hand and who is going out there and staying healthy, and depending on the matchup they're going against in terms of the defense. I mean, if you're going up against a more physical outside defense, on the outside, the cornerback position, you might see an Isaiah Hodgins, or you might see a, Collin Johnson out there. You could see Darius Slayton, some of the bigger wide receivers, try to out-physical the defenders. Or maybe they decide to go a different route. Maybe you might see some speed wide receivers out there to try to beat the more physical press corners, like a Parris Campbell, Darius Slayton, Jalin Hyatt. Or if you go against a team that is a little bit, physical, maybe you try to use your shifty wide receivers like a Wan'Dale Robinson or a Sterling Shepard. Giants have a lot of different guys they could throw on this football field. And you look at the team last year, looking at the stats, the guy with the highest amount of receptions on the team was a tie between Richie James and Saquon Barkley. And Richie James was a backup wide receiver / returner. And the only reason why Richie James had to play as much as he did last year, because Shepard and Robinson both got hurt during the season. Galladay was a major disappointment, and Kadarius Toney got traded during the beginning of the season. That's why the Giants had to go with Richie James as one of their leading guys. And Saquon Barkley ended up tying with the most receptions too. Darius Slayton led the team with 724 yards. Giants did have at least two receivers get over 4 touchdowns on the season, and that was Richie James and Isaiah Hodgins, who both had 4 touchdowns. And then Darius Slayton and Daniel Bellinger each had 2. Wan'Dale Robinson had a touchdown as well, but obviously we know what happened to him. He ended up getting injured on the season. So right now, when it comes to the New York Giants, it's an open competition at that wide receiver position. It is going to be hot, heavy, furious competition. And this team is going to have at least, I think they're, with the amount of players they have at this wide receiver position, I would not be shocked in the least if this team carries 7 wide receivers going into the season. Because you look at this wide receiver core, look at the guys on the roster. Sterling Shepard and Wan'Dale Robinson are coming off injuries. Parris Campbell has had a career of injury issues. Collin Johnson's coming off an injury. Jalin Hyatt hasn't done anything in the NFL yet. Saved him with Bryce Ford-Wheaton. Darius Slayton has been wildly inconsistent so far. Isaiah Hodgins looked pretty good at the end of last season, but at the same time, can he do it for a second year in a row? Now the teams are going to figure him out. It's going to be quite the intense competition at this wide receiver position. I'm expecting, right now, if I had to pick my early predictions on who is going to make this roster, I'd probably say there's a few locks on this roster. Slayton is a lock. Hodgins is a lock, I think. No, Hodgins actually is not a lock. I'll take that back. I think Slayton is a lock. Parris Campbell is a lock. Hyatt is a lock. I could say Wan'Dale Robinson, if he's healthy, he's a lock. If not, he'll start the season on PUP. I think Sterling Shepard will make the roster. And then after that, you got Bryce Ford-Wheaton, Isaiah Hodgins. You have Jeff Smith, Collin Johnson, You have Khalil Pimpleton, David Sills, Makai, Polk. All of these guys are going to be competing for roster spots. It's what I think the roster is going to be. If I had to pick my 6 wide receivers, I'm going to go with 6 on this one. I think the 6 wide receivers that will make the roster if everybody is healthy. I have Darius Slayton, Isaiah Hodgins, Parris Campbell. They'll be the starters. I think Wan'Dale Robinson will make it. Jalin Hyatt will be there. And I believe that Sterling Shepard will be there. Those are the 6 guys I think will make the roster. And then, with the most likely possibility, I'll put the alternative out there. If I had to put my alternative, because I do believe that both Robinson and Shepard will start the season on the PUP list or IR, Hodgins, Slayton, Campbell will be there. Hyatt will be there as well. Those are 4 guys that will be on the roster. And then I'll probably say Collin Johnson will make the roster. Actually, I take that back. I think Collin Johnson will be ousted. I think Bryce Ford-Wheaton will make the roster because I think the Giants are very high on the former wide receiver out of West Virginia. I think Bryce Ford-Wheaton will make the roster. And I believe that Jeff Smith will make the roster because they're going to want his return ability. And then you'll have Robinson and Shepard start the season on PUP. It's going to be an incredibly competitive wide receiver battle this summer. I'm excited for this battle at wide receiver. And I'm seeing if I'm planning on making a trip to training camp this year. And I'm going to see if I can document some of the film on this wide receiver position and the battles that they're going to have this year. Because it's going to be hot. It's going to be heavy. There's going to be battles up and down this roster. Nobody is guaranteed right now a starting spot in this roster. Some guys are not even guaranteed a spot on the roster. It is going to be a great competition, and I'm excited to see who is going to emerge as the top options in this wide receiver position, barring any injuries, because as we all know, injuries are always tending to happen when you get into these type of competitions at the wide receiver position for Big Blue. So hit that like button if you haven't already and give a sub to NYGJeffyT85. More news, updates, and chatter surrounding the New York Giants. Turn on the bell for notifications on the next video or short dropping on the channel surrounding the New York Giants. And you guys let me know in the comment section if you're excited for this wide receiver battle going into training camp and preseason and who you think is going to emerge as the top wide receivers coming out of this NFL draft and NFL free agency going into the summer months for the Big Blue New York Giants. Thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. Take it easy, and let's go New York Football Giants, as always. Together Blue, everyone.